Today I have a 24-volt Razor Pocket Rocket electric bike, and as usual it has a dead battery. So in this video I'm going to try and upgrade all of the electrical components on this bike. It's going to have a new 48-volt controller, 48-volt battery. I'm also going to try my 60-volt battery to see if it goes any faster, and that would be more fun. So let's get started. But first of all, let me show you some specs on this bike. This is the smallest electric motorbike made by Razor. You can see here, this is my hand and that's the whole bike. It is 36 inches long from front to back. From the bottom to the top, it's only 18 inches tall. It weighs only about 40 pounds, in which the battery pack alone is half of that weight. So by upgrading with a lithium-ion battery, I shave off about 10 pounds off of the bike. This thing is so small, yet I ride on it just fine. I look a little bit funny on it, but I would ride on it just fine. So here's the plan. This plastic cover has to come out, and then inside we got two 12-volt lead acid batteries that I need to remove. I also need to remove the controller as well, and the throttle has to be replaced also, because the new controller, it has only 3 wires on the throttle. This is the new throttle, and this throttle has 5 wires, so it needs to be replaced. I'm trying to get the battery out, and it's a real pain to remove. I've already got the plastic cover out, and there are just 3 screws, one here, one on the other side, and one on the bottom. The battery compartment is made just enough to fit the 2 lead acid batteries in there, and when it was new. But now when it's dead, it's inflated quite a bit, so it's a lot bigger. So that's why it's really a pain to remove this battery. So the trick here is to lift it up and pull it forward as much as possible, and then you turn it sideways like this, and then you can pull it out. Alright, I've got my lead acid batteries out and my cobalt 24-volt power tool battery in, and I hooked it up directly to the original controller, and let's see if it's working. That's pretty good. I have also installed a speedometer so I can measure the speed of the bike. And down here is how I install the magnet and the sensor onto the rim. Ready? Go! After 2 years test drive, I also gave it a go, and I was able to get it up to about 12 miles per hour, and that's with the 24-volt battery and original controller. Now it's time to upgrade with my new 48-volt controller. First things first, I need to get the old controller out and the throttle. Remove the 2 screws on the seat, and we can get the cover out. Here is the original 24-volt controller, and it only has 5 connectors. This one goes to the battery, and it's also a switch. The little red wire is the switch wire. This one is actually a charging connector, so when you plug in power, it will charge the battery. This one here is the brake. Usually a regular controller, this connector here looks like the connector for the brake, but in this case is for charging. This one here is the throttle, and this goes to the motor. On my new controller, the connector that goes to the battery only has 2 pins. This one has 3 pins because of the switch. This one has its own switch, so that's why the wire that goes to the battery only has 2 pins. And this is the switch, so if I connect the 2 pins together, the controller will turn on. The throttle on the old controller has 4 pins, and the throttle on the new controller has 3 pins, so that's why I have to use a new throttle for the new controller. A regular throttle like this one usually has 3 pins, and on this controller here it also has 3 pins, and even the colors match. So that's why I have to use a new throttle for this one. Alright, I've got everything connected and ready to go, and this is very simple. There are only 4 connectors: throttle, brake, battery down here, and connector to the motor, and that's it. This red and blue wire is for the switch, so I wired it down here to this button so I can turn on and off the controller. I've got my tachometer here, and I'm curious to see how fast it goes when it's not under load, so let's give it a try. 1,317, 1,320. So here's my calculation. At this no load speed, and the wheel circumference is 0.77 meter, and the speed is calculated to be 61 km per hour or 38 miles per hour. That's amazingly fast. And of course this is a no load speed, and that means when it's not under load, it's gonna be significantly lower than this when my donkey is on the bike. I've got the batteries installed and ready to go. These are Cobalt 24 volt 6 amp hour batteries. There are 2 of them, and they sit comfortably inside the battery compartment. There's still a little bit of clearance here, about an inch, so I think it should still fit the 8 amp hour ultimate output, which is a little bit thicker than this. Now I got everything ready, so let's give it a try and let's go out for a test drive. Well, I took it out for a spin, and the acceleration is amazing. It's extremely fast, and because of that the motor gets really hot. I'm going to make a heat sink for the motor, and this is made from this aluminum sheet here. I just cut it out a long strip and bend it around, and this is going to wrap around. It's going to wrap around the motor just like that. And I made a little fin on the top here. This fin is for further heat dissipation. There's no screw mounts on this motor, so I can mount the heatsink on. I'm going to use this zip tie and secure this heatsink onto the motor, and this should work just fine. Alright, so I got a heatsink installed, and it is held together by 2 zip ties here. The zip tie wraps around the aluminum and goes around the mount on the motor, and that's the mount between the motor and the frame, and that is holding on pretty good. When the bike goes forward, this wheel is going to spin forward and creates an airflow, and the air is going to go over the fins on that heatsink and will help cool the motor. Here's what it looks like from this angle. This piece of aluminum wraps around the motor very tight, and it's going to take a lot of heat away from the motor. First up, 48 volt test. Alright, here we go. Oh my god. 23, 24, 25, 25 miles per hour. Woo! Wow, it's very wobbly, very unstable. Woo! Next test is the Greenworks 60 volt battery. This battery fits perfectly in here. Snug fit. This bike is extremely difficult to control even with the 48 volt battery pack at 25 miles per hour. So with this 60 volt battery, it's gonna be extremely dangerous. Don't try this at home. This time I'm gonna wear a helmet. Well, the screw on my twist throttle mount is loose. It spins around, so when I turn my throttle, this goes along with it, so I couldn't get up to maximum speed, so I have to tighten this screw and try again. Alright, the screw is tightened now, so time to try again. Here we go. 15, 19, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 29.6 miles per hour, 30 miles per hour. Woo! Oh my God! Woo! Woo! Ah, scary. As far as the heatsink goes, even with the 60 volt battery, the motor gets hot. But the heatsink is also almost as hot as the motor. I'm touching the heatsink right now and it's quite hot. So the heatsink actually does a good job removing the heat away from the motor. So here's my final thought about this upgrade. I've done a lot of modification on electric bikes and electric scooters, especially with the Razor brand. This Razor Pocket Rocket is actually my favorite. This thing is so small, yet it packs a punch, especially with the 60 volt battery. Because this is so small and light, it could be used as a last mile transportation mode. You can bring it on a train or bus easily. The original motor on this bike is a 24 volt battery, so no surprise it gets too hot when I run it on a 48 volt battery pack. It gets even hotter with a 60 volt battery pack. So with this upgrade, it is absolutely necessary to make a heatsink for the motor. Without a heatsink, this motor will get too hot and melt the insulation on the copper coil of the stator. Once the wire insulation is melted, it will short out and that will be the end of the motor. So make sure you make some kind of heatsink for the motor if you want to upgrade this bike to a 48 volt battery. We really had fun on this bike, but it was extremely dangerous because the bike is so small. It has no suspension and it is very unstable and hard to control, especially at higher speed. That's all I have for now. Thanks for watching and I will see you next time.